What's up everyone, welcome back to a brand new Resident Evil 8 DLC kind of discussion video. Today we'll be going over my personal favourite character in the entire game, outside of Ethan of course, and that is Heisenberg. Heisenberg is the final lord you fight in the game, and probably has the coolest powers of the lot of them. Kind of reminds me of, well, kind of reminds everyone, if you look online, of Magneto from the X-Men. You know, he manipulates metal and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. He himself, his character in general, he's super cool. Pretty funny. If you've obviously played the factory section, you'll know he has a favourite word, and he says it multiple times about a certain person. But I think he's a really cool character, and it'd be nice to kind of explore his background. I've had a discussion with one of my subscribers, in comments on past videos about him, and all of the concept art and original ideas I have with him that could be implemented in as DLC. As well as his character in general and what he says throughout the game when you interact with him about his past. And again, I think that with DLC for this game, it'd be better off to make things that are set either just before the events of the game or during. And obviously with the Lord characters specifically, it's most fitting to set the DLC before the events of the game, because obviously throughout the game they're there to kind of stop Ethan, so you kind of know what they're doing throughout the run of the game. So definitely with the four lords, you want to do stuff that's kind of prior to Ethan's arrival. So today we're going to go over a couple of ideas I have for Heisenberg DLC, if it is a thing. And then next up we'll do Donna, and that'll be in a couple of days. I want to do a video on this every other day. So yeah, let's get into it. Before we do, of course, leave a like if you do enjoy the content and the video. And if you're interested in more Resident Evil content and stuff like it, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a video. And I also stream every weekend, both days, so come hang out and it's just a good time. So let's get into the video. Okay, so let's start with like a kind of like a prequel DLC, for him personally. If you know from the game, and when you play it, he mentions how Miranda took him and the rest to the village without their kind of like consent. Essentially, she kind of just took them to work on them, and he, more specifically him, he wasn't on board. He clearly doesn't like Miranda, and his goal is to kind of like kill her and overthrow her. It's essentially a personal agenda thing to try and get back on what she did to him. And I think what would be cool is to have a DLC where you play as Heisenberg, but obviously this is prior to his powers. Like, it's just him. He's just a dude, and maybe he's trying to escape, or something like that. Maybe you cross paths with the others that you kind of see throughout lords or villagers, stuff like that, whether it be anyone from the game. And just kind of see him as a character personally before he gets his powers and stuff like that, and how he tried to escape or resist her kind of manipulation on him, something like that. I think it would be pretty cool. I think the character himself, out of all of the lords, really has more of a personality than the rest. I'm not saying the others don't, it's just with him you can see a lot more of a personal kind of reasoning behind everything he's doing. And yes, it's not the best way to deal with things, but he has a goal at the end of the day, and he wants to kind of achieve that goal, so he'll do anything he can to kind of make it happen. So I think he's a lot more fleshed out than the others personally, which is why I'm going to put him second, because obviously we had Dimitrescu, who was like the most popular and who people want to see in DLC, and then there's him, who is more like I don't know, I feel like the character has more depth than the rest, so it'd be more easier to pull out DLC ideas for him than Moreau and Donna. Not that there isn't some simple ideas you could do with them, and believe me, I have a reasonable amount for both of those, even Moreau, which is interesting. That was quite difficult to kind of think of something, but I did. But yeah, first idea for Heisenberg would just to be him, powerless, trying to escape, trying to fight back, before inevitably, obviously we know what happens, he does bond with the Mutamorsi and get his powers. But yeah, it'd be nice to see the events leading up to that, because obviously he does not want this, he didn't want it, and clearly, because of who he is, he probably fought back in some way, so it'd be good to see what happened there. The second idea kind of pulls from the concept art in the game. If you purchased the deluxe edition or the trauma pack or whatever it was with the game, you got like a fair amount of concept art from Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village, and it went over some character changes, some location changes, story changes, stuff like that. And there was quite a few around Heisenberg, and it was very different to what we see now, and some of it could be used again as like prequel DLC if they want to flesh out the character more. A couple of ideas I have is, in one of the concept arts, Heisenberg was a twin. He had a twin brother. Maybe they both got took and only he survived the experiments and stuff like that, and you can kind of witness that in some way. He also had a mother who was also experimented on, but she kind of turned into like this big brain thing in the bed from the concept art. If you want to go see the concept art, you can go find it. But that would be a kind of, I feel like that could be a really cool idea to kind of see those characters, you know, alongside him, because maybe they did have plans to add them in as like a prequel type thing, you know, kind of flesh out his character a bit more. But you know, obviously, like I mentioned before, you have 4 lords. You need to kind of equally balance the screen time between them, which is why, you know, each area kind of really consists of like an hour to half an hour to an hour, really, if you fast through it. Like they're not too long, but they're equally kind of length. So you know, you can't really focus on one lord over the others because it wouldn't be fair. And then the final one, again, this goes back to just him on his own, but it could be, you know, again, it will be a first person perspective, obviously, because of how the game plays, but maybe it's set, you know, after he is infected with the immunomocy and the mold, and you know, he's getting used to his powers, and he ends up in the factory, and then you kind of like get the ability to control the map around you. You can like pull down walls and stuff like that, and maybe kind of like, maybe the factory's abandoned and infested with like lichens or whatever, and he's kind of clearing it out, and you can use these powers to kind of do that and kind of start the process in which he starts building his robot army. So yeah, that would be cool. It would add like a whole more feel of, you know, you feeling powerful because you have like these, you can use these powers. And you know, that's an idea I kind of touched on briefly in the Dimitrescu video, where you could kind of play as her or one of the daughters and kind of use the powers. It could be interesting to see that. I don't expect that. I really don't expect that. But you know, I think it would be pretty fun to kind of play as any of them, really, and kind of like see how they handle getting these powers and how they use them and get used to them and stuff like that. I just more specifically think it would be better for him or Dimitrescu to be the ones you play as if they were going to give the option to, because obviously Donna her powers are more focused on, you know, hallucinations and Angie and stuff like that, so she doesn't really have any powers on her own. But and then Moreau is just a fish, so it would essentially be swimming around and throwing up acid every now and again. But the Dimitrescu and Heisenberg have a bit more to them. Obviously, she has her extended fingers and the height, and you know, even the doors can kind of turn into flies at will and kind of go through walls and stuff like that. Heisenberg manipulates metal and can kind of build things with his mind, essentially. So you know, it would be really cool to see, you know, that from your perspective. Like, you can actually play it and see what happens with him before, you know, Ethan turns up and the game's events take place. But yeah, that's going to do it with my kind of like Heisenberg DLC kind of ideas. I think most of them, like I say, especially with the Lords, need to be pre-game, because we know what happens to them, you know, throughout the game. They're a big part of the game, so just being able to give them some more backstory, and not even if it's just focused on, you know, them, if it can be, you know, you play as someone else, but that specific Lord is kind of like the key to the DLC. You know, like, you're not playing as them, or it's not anything to do with their story, but it is kind of a DLC around them. Would be cool. But yeah, this has been Heisenberg. 3 ideas there that I think are kind of interesting. Again, you know, I do feel like playing as him post-powers would be pretty cool, and then maybe him, you know, pre-powers, where you kind of try and escape with him would be pretty cool as well. So them are 2 ideas. Obviously there's the one from the concept art, which again, it could be done to flesh out the character, but at the end of the day, that stuff was cut from the game. I know the same thing is the case with Ada, and people want to see that, and there's potential, but you know, it's a possibility, purely because, you know, the ideas are already there, and, you know, if they really want to, they can kind of implement those ideas that they cut from the main game into the DLC, so who knows. But either way, this has been the Heisenberg video. Let me know what you think of my ideas, obviously, in the comments. And yeah, we'll move on to probably Donna next. Will be the next Lord we review, and then it'll go on to Moreau. I don't know if I want to do Miranda, because most of her backstory is kind of explained in game through like the lore room and stuff like that. So I don't really think that's necessary. But then we'll move on to a couple of other characters, mainly the villagers, and then possibly some others, depending on if there's enough to kind of go off of in terms of missing points in the story and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you all tomorrow for another video.